Hello again, and welcome to another Bible study in the book of Hosea. Today we're in chapter 2 and chapter 4. My name is Hosea, Salvation, and welcome back to my attempt to explain what I meant 2,750 years ago when I was prophesying to my nation of Israel of just 10 tribes. I sometimes use the word Ephraim as a synonym for Israel. Ephraim was a very influential tribe of the tribes in the north. We had had a great divorce from Judah about 200 years before my time. It had not worked out well. Israel's time as a distinct nation was about to come to an end. God had called me to be a prophet or his spokesman, and then instructed me to marry a promiscuous girl who would leave me and become a prostitute. Later, God called upon me to go and search for her, find her, pay a ransom to set her free, and to restore her as my wife. This was to be a powerful presentation of God's faithfulness to a very unfaithful people. My experience of marrying an undeserving woman and then restoring the marriage was a picture from God of his relationship with Israel, the northern kingdom. Israel was unfaithful to its marriage covenant with God. God was always faithful to them. Chapters 1 and 3 were the summary of my story. In chapter 2, my prophecies are first recorded. Verses 2 to 13 I've entitled, Israel is going to get what she deserves. In verse 2, God told me to tell the children, Jezreel, Lo-Ruhamah, and Lo-Ammi, to rebuke their mother Gomer, because this was how God felt towards Israel, my country. Because just as Gomer had been unfaithful to me, Israel had been unfaithful to God. She still had an opportunity to repent, but her behaviour was tantamount to a formal divorce. By verse 3, I am speaking more to my nation than I am to my children. If she did not change, she will be stripped as bare as a baby. In a similar way, the country is going to be stripped bare like a desert, parched with no water supply. 4. God will no longer show love to Israel's children because so many had been born from men's girlfriends, not their wives. So many children of adultery. 2 of my children, I'm sure, were not mine. 5. Having left me to be a prostitute, Gomer had gone after her lovers to get paid by them. All her best clothes and food came from what she charged. Likewise, you Israelites have gone after many gods, and see how self-centered she had become. My food, my water, my wool, my linen, my olive oil, my drink. All Gomer cares about is what she can get from her fees. 6. Now God will make it impossible for Gomer, Israel, to go after other gods. God will put stumbling blocks in her way. She will experience judgment by frustration. 7. Not least the frustration of enforced chastity. She, Israel, will try to hunt down her customers, false gods, but will be blocked off from them. Once Israel realizes that going after other gods no longer pays, she will go back to the Lord, just as Gomer eventually came back to me. She will be better off with me than with her customers. She sounds like the prodigal son who said, "It was better with me then than now." Neither Gomer nor Israel were yet motivated by love. They simply wanted to get back to the good old days. 8. The country needed to recognize that it was God, Yahweh, who had provided all their food and money, not Baal. Grain, wine and oil come direct from God, not through Baal worship. 9. Until they decide to return, the Lord was going to withdraw Israel's grain and wine for food and wool and linen for clothing. 10. Israel will become like a woman who goes out naked. What an irony for a prostitute. Israel will have nothing. 11. All her religious ceremonies, annual ones, monthly ones and weekly ones, will come to an end. They have been given by God, but have been corrupted by Baal worship. Israel's vineyards and fig trees will stop producing fruit. The wild animals will feast instead. 13. Israel is going to be punished for dressing up erotically to go and worship the Baals. They forgot the Lord. Let me read to you that Israel is going to get what she deserves in chapter 2 from verse 2. Rebuke your mother, rebuke her, for she is not my wife, and I am not her husband. Let her remove the adulterous look from her face, and the unfaithfulness from between her breasts. Otherwise I will strip her naked and make her as bare as on the day she was born. I will make her like a desert, turn her into a parched land, and slay her with thirst. I will not show my love to her children, because they are the children of adultery. Their mother has been unfaithful and has conceived them in disgrace. She said, I will go after my lovers, who give me my food and my water and my wool and my linen and my olive oil and my drink. Therefore I will block her path with thorn bushes. I will wall her in so that she cannot find her way. She will chase after her lovers, but not catch them. She will look for them, but not find them. Then she will say, I will go back to my husband as at first, for then I was better off than now. She has not acknowledged that I was the one who gave her the grain, the new wine and oil, who lavished on her the silver and gold which they used for Baal. Therefore I will take away my grain when it ripens, and my new wine when it is ready. I will take back my wool and my linen intended to cover her naked body. So now I will expose her lewdness before the eyes of her lovers. No one will take her out of my hands. I will stop all her celebrations, her yearly festivals, her new moons, her Sabbath days, all her appointed festivals. I will ruin her vines and her fig trees, which she said were her pay from her lovers. I will make them a thicket, and wild animals will devour them. I will punish her for the days she burned incense to the Baals. She decked herself with rings and jewellery and went after her lovers. But me she forgot, declares the Lord. Now moving on to verse 14, the whole scene lights up. We will see that Israel is going to get what she does not deserve. The Lord is going to take Israel into the wilderness and change his tone by speaking softly to her. The 40 years in the wilderness had been a time of youthful pilgrimage. Now there is to be a new Exodus experience for Israel. God is going to restore his relationship with her. Later, Jeremiah makes this very clear in chapter 2, verse 2. I remember the devotion of your youth. How as a bride you loved me and followed me through the wilderness, through a land not sown. Israel was holy to the Lord. Verse 15. The time will come when Israel will get her vineyards back, and her trouble, Achor, will be transformed by hope. Achor was the place where Achan was punished for his compromise in stealing and concealing the treasures of Ai, not artificial intelligence, a town which Joshua was trying to defeat in battle. This had been in the early days of Joshua's command. Achan had tried to deceive and disobey his commander and God, and was punished severely at Achor. But now the people of Israel will be like their ancestors on the day they left Egypt. They will respond positively to God's forgiveness and reinstatement. God is going to lay the ghosts of Israel's past. 16. The word Baal can mean owner, husband, master, Lord. The day is coming when they will call God husband again instead of Baal, master. 17. In fact, they will stop using the names of Baal altogether. Israel will enjoy a warmer and more intimate relationship with God than ever before. This new name, husband, will drive out the old names. 18. God will make a covenant with them that will bring peace in the world of nature and peace between nations. Everyone will feel safe again. Natural disasters and military defeats will be sent into the past. 19. God is going to betroth himself to Israel again in a new marriage marked by righteousness, justice, love, compassion. I've used the word betroth 3 times in quick succession in verse 19 and 20. This sounds a note of eagerness and warmth, love, compassion, verse 20, and faithfulness. These 5 nouns, righteousness, justice, love, compassion, faithfulness, are like the bride price a man would pay to marry his beloved, her dowry. This quintet of godly attributes will mean this marriage will last forever. Verse 19, I will betroth you to me forever. This new covenant will be entirely of grace. The Lord will initiate the betrothal, pay the bride price, and guarantee its permanence. Israel will acknowledge the Lord. In verse 21 and 22, God will respond with two guarantees. First, God will ensure that the earth and the skies cooperate together to guarantee good harvests, crops, wine, olive oil. The fundamental human needs will be met. And in verse 22, the second guarantee, God will reverse the names of my three children, just as he had promised to do at the end of chapter 1. The meaning of Jezreel's name will be reversed. It had meant that people will be scattered by the Assyrians. Now it will mean that as farmers scatter seed, the seed will grow abundantly and have good harvests. 23. Israel will be replanted in the land, and the names of my children will be reversed. Instead of Lo Ruhamah, not loved, loved. And instead of Lo Ami, not my people, they will be my people, and I will be their God. The nation will say, I will. They will say, you are my God. You may remember Ruth's words to Naomi, your people will be my people, and your God, my God. The New Testament explains these name changes in 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 10 and Romans chapter 9 verse 25. Peter says, Jews and Gentiles together are a chosen race, a holy people. And Paul says, believing Gentiles are as much God's people as believing Jews. Let me read you then that Israel is going to get what she does not deserve from verse 14. Therefore, I am now going to allure her, and I will lead her into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her. There I will give her back her vineyards and will make the valley of Achor a door of hope. There she will respond as in the days of her youth, as in the days she came up out of Egypt. In that day, declares the Lord, you will call me my husband. You will no longer call me my master, Baal. I will remove the names of the Baals from her lips. No longer will their names be invoked. In that day I will make a covenant for them with the beasts of the field, the birds in the sky, and the creatures that move along the ground. Bow and sword and battle I will abolish from the land, so that all may lie down in safety. I will betroth you to me forever. I will betroth you in righteousness and justice, in love and compassion. I will betroth you in faithfulness, and you will acknowledge the Lord. In that day I will respond, declares the Lord. I will respond to the skies, and they will respond to the earth. And the earth will respond to the grain, the new wine, and the olive oil, and they will respond to Jezreel. I will plant her for myself in the land. I will show my love to the one I called not my loved one. I will say to those called not my people, you are my people. And they will say, you are my God. Moving then into chapter 4. My experience of getting married and it all going wrong has taught me a lot about the Lord's attitude to his people. And in the first part of this chapter, I'm going to tell you that Israel is a broken state. In verse 1, I felt I was in a court of law, and I realized that God was charging Israel for a number of reasons. When God looked for faithfulness, loving kindness, and respect for God, he found none. There were no positive virtues. But there in verse 2, there were plenty of negative vices. What he did find was cursing, lying, murder, stealing, adultery, and bloodshed. So much for the precious 10 Commandments. As I say in verse 2, they break all bounds. 3, that is why the harvests have been so bad, and even the fishermen have had few fish to catch. Verse 4 is a difficult verse in the New International Version. Let me read the paraphrase from the Message. Don't look for someone to blame. No finger pointing. You, priest, are the one in the dock. Verse 5, if you can't trust the priests, you can't trust the cult prophets either. Israel, the mother of them all, is going to be destroyed. 6, God's people are being destroyed because they have not learned anything about God, because the priests have not been doing their job, teaching. The priests, as well as the prophets, are to blame for this, for not teaching the people about God. Their children are as ignorant as they are. Chapter 4, verse 1. Hear the word of the Lord, you Israelites, because the Lord has a charge to bring against you who live in the land. There is no faithfulness, no love, no acknowledgement of God in the land. There is only cursing, lying and murder, stealing and adultery. They break all bounds, and bloodshed follows bloodshed. Because of this, the land dries up, and all who live in it waste away. The beasts of the field, the birds in the sky, and the fish in the sea are swept away. But let no one bring a charge, let no one accuse another, for your people are like those who bring charges against a priest. You stumble day and night, and the prophets stumble with you. So I will destroy your mother. My people are destroyed from lack of knowledge. Because you have rejected knowledge, I also reject you as my priests. Because you have ignored the law of your God, I also will ignore your children. And in the following verses, we read that being unfaithful to God will have dire consequences. Verse 7, the more priests, the more sins. A fine state of affairs. In fact, the more priests there are, the worse things become, because they sin by exchanging God for a disgraceful idol. 8, you priests enjoy it when you see your people sinning, because every time an Israelite sins, they bring a sin offering of lambs or kids to God in sacrifice, which the priests are required to eat. So when I say they feed on the sins of my people, it is literal. Most of verses 1 to 9 are damning about the priests. The following is damning about the priests and the people who follow them. Like people, like priests. And both the people and the priests are going to be punished. There will be no exemptions for a spiritual elite. While worshipping the Baals, all the food in the world and their endless opportunities for sex will not satisfy them. 11, sex and drinking have led them astray. They will never satisfy them. 12, you are foolish enough to consult pieces of wood for guidance. Your commitment to prostitutes is leading you astray. You are unfaithful to God. 13, you keep sacrificing to your idols and having open-air sex anywhere you can, on mountain summits, in the shade of trees, shade anywhere actually. Even your newly married girls are involved in selling their bodies at the idol shrines. 14, God doesn't blame these women. The women were experiencing a kind of herd mentality. He blames the men. God understands why the girls are doing it. It's because the men are demanding it. You are all going to come to ruin. 15. Judah, your next door neighbour, needs to watch its step too. Don't encourage Judah to go to Gilgal, one of the main shrines in the north, or Beth-aven, that's my name for Bethel, house of God, Beth-aven, house of shame. Don't encourage them to go to Beth-aven. The house of God is now a house of shame. The people of Judah are being drawn north to Gilgal, and the people of Israel are being drawn south to Beth-aven. Don't go to those places and take useless oaths. 16. You Israelites are so stubborn. If you behave like a stubborn cow, then you can't expect to be treated like a quiet lamb in a meadow. 17. Ephraim is my favourite name for you Israelites. Ephraim had become the most influential tribe in the northern kingdom. Ephraim may be my favoured name, but I don't favour their behaviour at all. Idols make Israel untouchable. The idols in places like Gilgal and Bethel lead them to go on drinking until their glasses are empty, and then to continue their sexual unfaithfulness. And the country's rulers love it. 19. So they will be swept away by a metaphorical whirlwind, and they will be ashamed of their idol worship in that day. Let me read to you about being unfaithful to God, having dire consequences. Chapter 4, verse 7. The more priests there were, the more they sinned against me. They exchanged their glorious God for something disgraceful. They feed on the sins of my people and relish their wickedness. It will be like people, like priests. I will punish both of them for their ways and repay them for their deeds. They will eat but not have enough. They will engage in prostitution but not flourish, because they have deserted the Lord to give themselves to prostitution. Old wine and new wine take away their understanding. My people consult a wooden idol, and a diviner's rod speaks to them. A spirit of prostitution leads them astray. They are unfaithful to their God. They sacrifice on the mountain tops and burn offerings on the hills, under oak, poplar, and terebinth, where the shade is pleasant. Therefore your daughters turn to prostitution, and your daughters-in-law to adultery. I will not punish your daughters when they turn to prostitution, nor your daughters-in-law when they commit adultery, because the men themselves consort with harlots and sacrifice with shrine prostitutes. A people without understanding will come to ruin. Though you, Israel, commit adultery, do not let Judah become guilty. Do not go to Gilgal, do not go up to Beth-aven, and do not swear as surely as the Lord lives. The Israelites are stubborn like a stubborn heifer. How then can the Lord pasture them like lambs in a meadow? Ephraim is joined to idols. Leave him alone. Even when their drinks are gone, they continue their prostitution. Their rulers dearly love shameful ways. A whirlwind will sweep them away, and their sacrifices will bring them shame. Well, let me come out of role now and ask the question, so what? How does this help me be a better follower of Jesus? How can these two chapters bless me in my walk with God? In chapter 2, I think we can say, never pay for sex. It will cost you dear. And you may think to yourself, why on earth am I talking about this? Well, I'll tell you why. There's a Christian magazine called Premier Christianity. It's the best-selling magazine in the United Kingdom for Christians. And in January's edition, it had an article about a new movement called Flint, begun by a man called Rob Scott. Rob Scott had been trying to help prostitutes leave their way of life. He always went out with two women in order to help women on the streets. And then he thought to himself, the problem lies with the men, which is what was being said here in Hosea. And so he decided to turn to the men, the customers of these women. And he started with the church. He found 500 anonymous men in churches in Bedfordshire. Bedfordshire isn't far from us here in Derby. He discovered from this anonymous survey that 1 in 10 had paid for sex at least once. 50 of them had paid for sex at least once. Need I say more? Another blessing, number 2, with God, the time comes when enough is enough. In verses 11 and 12, God tolerates sin, defiance, disobedience, and rebellion for so long, and then he says enough is enough. And he says this in Romans chapter 1 as well. 3 times it says God gave them over, God gave them over, God gave them over. He gave them over to the sinful desires of their hearts, to sexual impurity, for the degrading of their bodies with one another. He gave them over to shameful lusts. Even their women exchanged natural sexual relationships for unnatural ones. And God gave them over to a depraved mind so that they do what ought not to be done. There comes a point in life where God says, I'm going to allow you now to exercise your free moral will, and you will see what the consequences of that are. Take warning note. A third blessing from chapter 2, we can look forward to a glorious future. In verses 18 to 20, the new covenant is described, and we are betrothed to Christ now. We are his bride, and we can look forward to living in a world at peace, both in nature and between peoples. It says in verse 18, all may lie down in safety. Now this is ahead. Some feel this will fall in the time of the millennium, or others in the time of the new heavens and a new earth. One day we will know for sure because you will be there. In chapter 4, the sins in verse 2 show the people who were running amok without a care in the world. Why? Because the priests and prophets had destroyed the people by lack of knowledge. The religious leaders were especially accountable. James in his letter says, "Not many of you should become teachers, my fellow believers, because you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly." I find that very telling, and it gives me great pause. Those of us who set out to teach the word of God will be judged by a higher standard. But here, back in Hosea's time, they weren't teaching the people at all, and therefore they were not learning about God. We can only learn about God from his word. And I was in a Bible bookshop recently where there was a Bible for the autistic, a Bible for children, a Bible in Common English, a Bible for teens, youth Bibles. It's so easy for us to find from any bookshop, really, a version of the Bible which will be a blessing to us, because to us much has been given, and from us much will be required. I do hope that these 2 chapters you will read again, and you will find an enriching blessing for your following of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.